The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Friends in Recovery podcast, the podcast that is here to help you, a loved one, or a friend get started down the road to recovery. This is the Friends in Recovery podcast, brought to you by the Genesis House. Genesis House, providing a safe, nurturing environment to heal from addiction since 1992. Please be a friend and share our message with a friend on Podbean, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or YouTube. And now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Hey, welcome everybody. Friends in Recovery podcast. We're here in the Studio 21, Salem, New Hampshire.
And a lovely studio it is, Mike.
Oh, it's lovely. And I don't know what the weather is outside, Ed. We're stuck inside.
We're stuck inside.
It's just generic weather out there, Mike.
and the time is what, 4 o'clock?
It's whatever time it may be.
I would hope it's like 65 and sunny, but
well,
who knows what it's
who
like
knows?
out there.
Yeah,
In
exactly.
fact, there's actually a podcast I listen to, and they started with good generic time of the day.
And who is that voice talking to us?
That's the producer extraordinaire, Ed Sullivan.
I thought we fired him last week.
He's still
Well,
here.
you tried. But I got nowhere else to go.
That's true. And I heard that I was one of your only 2 friends.
Yeah. How sad is that?
That is pretty sad, Ed.
Do you have anything for us, Ed?
I do. Before we get to our guest, I'd like to thank Genesis House, as usual, for setting up this studio for us and letting us get this beautiful message out of hope and providing wonderful guests. And it's a pleasure, that they do this for us, that Taylor and everybody that does it for us. So if you enjoy the Friends in Recovery podcast, join us for our Friends in Recovery community of support, which is our alumni.
Yes.
We hold monthly gatherings in Florida and New Jersey, and I'm not sure right now. I believe the Massachusetts one might be up and running, but check with us because I know Bob is kind of trying to get that going.
Yes,
for us.
he is. Bob Cox.
Updates will be on Facebook, so check it out on Facebook for the updates. But please support our Florida and our New Jersey Friends in Recovery community of support. We also have a special event coming up. Friends in Recovery will be participating in the Atlantic City Marathon in October. That's the 19th and 20th. Right. There's a 5K and a 10K and a half and a full marathon. I did commit to the half, and I think, Mike, you said you were going to do the marathon.
I was going to drive the marathon just to make sure everybody's okay.
Right,
you misunderstood me, Ed.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Well, so if a couple of us are going to be there, we want you guys to kind of, if you want to come, let us know, email us or whatever. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and subscribe to YouTube and all your favorite podcast catchers so you can get the updates and know when the new shows are coming out and
important stuff
and all that stuff. So, and as always, we're always looking for guest speakers.
Yes.
And we're looking for maybe alumni, if you're listening, to come on, tell us your story and how your experience was at Genesis House. And, we're just always looking for somebody to come on and be a guest. If not, you're going to have to listen to me and Mike talk every week.
Yep, and that can get old really fast.
Get those phones ringing, guys. That is. Oh, and then also you can email me and you can email the show at help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com.
Correct.
I try to answer the emails, and Mike signs all the autographs. And
I do all that. Sends out the mugs and T-shirts.
He does.
That's
And
right.
then we do have some mugs and T-shirts left. So if you want them, just request it by email, and we just need your address and all that. We'll send them out to you.
And your size.
And your size. Yep. So the Podfather, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah,
doing great. Yeah, we got a lot of new stuff going on.
Good.
We've been very busy the last couple of days.
Yeah, we have, absolutely.
Especially today, and it's nice. We have a special guest today.
We do. I'm excited about this
I bet
guest.
you are.
Actually, he's somebody who I know very well, probably for the last 15 years, give or take.
Right.
And
I've never met him, but I've had a lot of communication with him and intervention, and I got to tell you, I have nothing but glowing remarks and.
Well, I can tell you some bad stuff about him. But we'll do that off air. But who's that guest?
So today we have Steve Adams, the clinical director from Genesis.
Yes, it is. I'm excited about this show.
Yep, I got a little bio here I'd like to read because
could.
Steve is a very humble guy. So if we asked him to do his own bio, he probably wouldn't say this. But Steve is the licensed clinical social worker and certified addiction professional. and he has a personal history of long-term recovery and an extensive professional background in treating addiction. He's a humble guy.
Yes, he is.
He's client-centered, family-oriented person with a primary purpose to pay it forward. A lot like you and I, Ed.
Yeah. He's.
Yep.
I think he's the same makeup as us.
Yep.
So
Probably a little smarter than both of us.
I'm sure he is. I seen those degrees on his wall. I don't got any of those.
In addition to being a clinical director, he oversees a gender-specific men's case load group there at the Genesis House. He uses a reality therapy approach in dealing with anger management, domestic violence, family systems, parenting issues, and many other systematic consequences exuberated by addictive behavior. And just reading that as a clinical social worker myself, he's really incorporated everything we deal with when we're sitting across from client or clients. And I'm looking forward to hearing from him.
Absolutely.
Steve, how are you today?
Steve, welcome.
Doing well.
Wonderful,
Thanks for having me.
Welcome
Good
to
be
Friends in
here.
Recovery, Steve.
Good. You can hear me okay?
Oh, wonderful.
Yep, absolutely. Via satellite, right, Ed?
Via satellate, yeah.
We always got the satellite running for you,
That's
Ed.
right. You click it on when I get
Where's
here,
the
right?
eject button?
That's right.
Did my makeup artist do a pretty good job?
Yeah, you're looking
Yeah,
good.
look excellent.
You're a
Excellent.
handsome man.
Oh God. So how's Genesis House going, Steve?
Going well. Wonderful. Never a dull moment. Never
Nope.
a dull moment.
No, I'm sure there's always something going on. Always fires to be put out and things to be taken care of down there. I'm sure. So
Yeah, but it's a blessing. It really is.
Well, I can say from a professional and personal experience, Steve, even though we've never met, we've spoken on the phone, and your work has produced some really good results. People come back to my neck of the woods up here in Massachusetts. People I've sent down there, and they've had the opportunity, and they've been privileged to have someone like yourself work with them, and you do some good work.
absolutely. Yeah, we're very blessed to have you, Steve. So.
Yeah. So
Well, tell us a little bit about what brought you to Genesis House, maybe your story, what built you up into becoming who you are today.
Sure. I'll do my best. It's been a long ride. So, like a lot of people that end up in this field, the recovery journey did quite a bit of damage to the family system and to myself. And about 19 years ago, I ended up like a lot of people in a treatment center and followed up with a commitment for a very short-term, few-month commitment to a recovery house, halfway house down in South Florida. And ultimately it's turned into a 19-year journey.
Wow.
So it's been such a blessing. One thing led to another, and was able to be afforded the opportunity and the blessing to help individuals in this field. And all started with my own journeys in recovery. I decided to go back to school and end up getting a bachelor's degree in social work, and one thing led to another, and a master's, and then becoming an LCSW like Mike. And over the years, I've kind of just really been really client-centered and engaged. And I'm not the clinical director that sits behind the desk all day and does paperwork. I run groups and do the case management, discharge planning, family therapy. I try and get involved as much as possible, do the very best that I can to help clients, because I know it's a very systemic issue, addiction is, and it tears families apart. So, we do our best to have the most favorable outcomes. So,
Steve, where are you from originally? You have a southern accent. For us,
I'm from Boston.
From Boston.
South Boston.
South Boston, yeah.
I'm from southern part of Virginia,
Nice.
a little small town called Alta Vista, about 40 miles from the North Carolina border.
Nice.
And I ended up going to treatment in Lynchburg, Virginia, and ended up coming down here for a recovery house. But I'm born and raised from Virginia.
Nice.
Nice.
As a clinical social worker and therapist myself, in recovering, I kind of feel your pain, or feel your excitement, your exuberance, and your gratitude. I can tell. Working with families of the addict and the alcoholic, it's always difficult. But do you find? I guess my question would be: do you find? We had done a show a while back, and Melissa had sent some really. Melissa also works at Genesis House, and she's been doing a great job. She sent some really good information about the family dynamics, and how the family can be a hindrance, not so much of a help, but also a hindrance. So for my own clinical experience, I see that as well. I mean, it's something we have to endure. But how do you deal with that when you have a reluctant family member that's trying to tell you what the patient needs?
Well, it's a really good question, Mike. And everybody, I used to be really big into the clinical terms, the nice fancy word of codependency and enabling, and the tough love approach. And over the years, my stance has changed just a little bit. And what I mean by that is that family members, it's one thing, we use the term enabling. When someone is giving their kids or their loved ones or their husband or their wife or spouse, whatever, they're giving them money directly to go buy drugs, that's enabling. But when you're trying to help your loved one just to have a place to live, back to basic needs of Maslow's, of food and shelter and so forth, that's been taken so far out of context into enabling. And that really bothers me. And it's almost sometimes like the family members, the loving, caring families with great value systems have raised and did the very best they could and did not ask for this. And in a sense are almost kind of blamed as the enablers. Now, granted, there are a lot of boundary issues and a lot of work that needs to be done, communication variables. There's alcoholism within the family system sometimes, addiction. It gets very, very complex. And, I understand, families send their loved ones to a program to get well and basically to fix them. We know that it does not work like that. Mm-hmm. And family members, sometimes they're continuing on with their lives. They're having to pay mortgages, go to work, take care of responsibilities, take care of children. And a lot of times they're being called, and said, basically you need to send money to your loved one to help them with this, that, and the other, and do this in early recovery, whether it's a fee for a halfway house, whether it's medications. And so there's a lot of mixed messages sometimes between enabling and support in the recovery process. And I'd be the first to say, I feel that our field has not did a really good job at defining enabling and codependency, because the loved ones, they want nothing more. So I try and teach the clients that I work with to quit putting your effing families in this position where they have to make these tough decisions to not help you to get a place to live, to, not pay for an attorney, a probation officer. Yeah, so we all know I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I think, Steve, the families are so programmed in doing that they feel that they're going to fail, that the loved one in therapy with you at Genesis House with you, they're going to fail if they don't do this, if they don't ask for their requests. And from the family side of point of view, I won't get into it, but me and you, before I even started working at Genesis House, we were able to communicate on that piece too. So I know how you work with the families and the clients together, and not letting them letting the families enabling them to do what they want to do. But I guess the question that I have is, how do you handle that on your end, like with the families as well as the client?
Well, it's a good question. I try to, avoid kind of triangulation. So there's a lot of he said, she said, talking about what someone has did in recovery. He said this. We all know the routine. You come into treatment, there's that kind of honeymoon phase. Everybody's happy. Then there's the maintenance phase of treatment. And there's the panic when everybody hears the discharge date. There's a lot of fragmented care, breakdowns of communication and triangulation that goes on. So I usually try and empower my clients to have a voice. I want to get them on the phone or in person to have that family member to be held accountable, so we can communicate together to break down the he said and she said, because that's been going on for a number of years. Correct. And it really fosters addictive behavior. So it's a challenge sometimes, because, and everybody's different. Some family members, they, like I said before, they don't have the energy, much less the time, the resources to be fully invested. They want nothing but the best for their loved one, but that's why they send them to us. Right. So we try and guide and support and love and nurture the very best that we can throughout the recovery process. But, it gets, as you guys know, it's just not as simple as go to treatment, quit using drugs, and let's get back to business. There's a whole dynamic that this is just the beginning. Yeah. Just the beginning.
Yeah. I was always told that, and I bring it up on the show every once in a while, but the family's like a cog. You're going to take the broken cog out that the family thinks, out of that whole wheel. You're going to bring them down. You're going to fix it. You're going to try to stick that cog back in the wheel, and it's not going to mesh right. So something's going to have to break. Either family's going to have to give in and do something different, or the addict's going to just relapse again, and they won't mesh right when they come back, especially if the family doesn't get back into get into treatment or understand what the new way of life is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Therapy, a lot of, the go-to recommendation is always Al-Anon, participate in the family program. And I will tell you, there's times when, there is, abusive husband, an abusive wife, there's an abusive situation, a father, vice versa, the son, the daughter is abusive to their parents, where, there has to be very strong dogmatic approaches and boundaries set. And, you have to take a much more harsh stance on treating addiction. And, the coddling, the love and support, we're all here for you and we want the best for you. And, that just has not worked. So, each approach has to be somewhat individualized.
Absolutely.
And, that's a challenge. It really is.
Certainly is. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to be back, talk to Steve Adams a little bit more, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Genesis House is a premier substance abuse and rehabilitation facility located in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. We have been providing the highest quality of addiction treatment since 1992 and are accredited by the Joint Commission. We offer a range of programs that include detox, residential treatment, dual diagnosis, a Christian track for people who want to incorporate their faith into treatment, a uniform services track, and we work with most major insurance carriers. Genesis House is led by a dedicated team of administrative and clinical professionals, and we stand on our commitment to excellence in recovery services. Contact us today to find out more about our program. Take the first step and call Genesis House at 800-737-0933 or visit us on the web at www.genesishouse.net. That's 800-737-0933 or www.genesishouse.net. Begin your journey to a long and successful recovery with Genesis House.
Hey, welcome back, Friends in Recovery Podcast. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles, and my good friend Ed Chionchio,
hey, guys.
next to me. And did we mention Ed Sullivan, extraordinary, intelligent, and so apt in everything he does? Ed Sullivan.
You're just happy because I helped you out when you were solo, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, Ed abandoned me.
Yeah, I know. That was a good show.
Tough.
And
it was tough.
The good Ed was here.
The good Ed was there. Yes,
thank goodness.
Yes. I was on a plane back from Boise, so I would have rather been here. Believe me.
I bet you would have. So we have Steve Adams on the. What are we doing here? Is this called is this a Skype? It's all new to me.
We're using Zoom.
Zoom.
But we don't get paid for saying Zoom, so
we say
Skype. We're using an alternative service to Skype.
Yes.
It's not a satellite by any chance.
It's on a satellate, yes.
It is.
So, Steve, welcome back. I just had a quick question. I like when you spoke my language. You mentioned Maslow, and I've used Maslow's theory of hierarchy in my own therapy practice, and it was really nice hearing you say that because. Once the structure, the home structure is out of order, and if you're listening and you want to know what it is, just Google Maslow, Maslow. It'll explain to you, and it's really the theory itself has been very helpful, I think, in our line of work. Would you agree, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Asking a client to get back to kind of self-actualization immediately, post-treatment is just unrealistic. People are set up for failure. They need a continuum of care. They need not only primary treatment, they need some step-down services, whether it's to an intensive outpatient, an outpatient, a PHP program, a recovery house, a halfway house. And we're here as, clinicians and human beings and fathers, and we're here to guide and support through that process.
Certainly. Certainly. And I think any therapist worth his or her salt, definitely, especially if you have a family, I always put myself in people's positions, and I'm sure you do too. And, that empathetic, tool that we have, most of us have, like you say, we get into this field. A lot of us get into this field because of our own issues that we had, addiction, whatever. It could be a multitude of things. But I've always found that I've always had an empathetic feeling for family members, and I know you do too, Steve. Just by talking.
Oh, absolutely.
Steve, can you take us through one day in the life of Steve Adams at Genesis House?
That's actually a great question.
I bore you to death there, Mike.
Well, you know what, Steve? I have a lot of people when they call me, especially the referral sources or EAPs or whoever, and the family members, they always ask me, what does a day look like? Right. And that's something me and Mike were just discussing. And what does a day look like? We have you here on the show, and you can explain it to some of the people, maybe from the beginning to end, what the day in a Genesis House life looks like for a client.
Sure, I'll do the very best that I can. So, no day is ever the same in the treatment. So we have a nice piece of paper that says we're going to have every day, we're going to have a mindfulness group and or yoga therapy. We're going to have peer group, process group, a psychoeducational group. We may integrate some auxiliary services in that, stress therapies such as massage therapy and yoga, as I had mentioned. You're going to do some individual therapy with your therapist, your primary therapist caseload group, some wrap-up groups, some 12-step group, different levels of programming depending on what day it is. Sometimes our clients are being pulled out to see the medical director, to see the attending psychiatrist for the medication management. A family session may be occurring. We carry very small caseloads here. So as the clinical director, I give the primary therapist, the licensed therapist here, they're professionals. I give them the autonomy to pretty much work their caseload the way that they need to work it, because everybody has different schedules. I was listening to the commercial during the break, and, it was pointing out, our Christian track. One of our primary therapists, long-term therapist, female Natasha, does a lot of work with the eating disorders. Mm-hmm. All of us are, as licensed clinical social workers, trained to work with many mood disorders, anxiety disorders, substance use disorders. And so there's just, an array of services that go on. And what I've always liked about the Genesis House is a lot of people picture when they come here, they picture, and I've been here for about 13 years, I believe. So, and I started out as a primary therapist and kind of fell into the clinical director position. And, I always tell them when they come here, we picture this kind of conventional therapy process of sitting behind a desk and how do you feel this 1 hour session back and forth. And it's just not like that. We use a lot of unconventional therapy processes as well as conventional therapy processes. So, it could be something as, simple as my therapist, Rob, who runs the Christian track, out playing ping pong with the clients out here, having a conversation of how their day's going, to the mental health, behavioral health techs out here supporting the clients, shooting some basketball during free time, the nuts and bolts of the program, the staff members that are doing the operational stuff, the administration, whether it's dealing with labs, whether it's, triaging to our doctor, our physicians, our catering, cafeteria, meal planning, our nutritionist is here some days. So when you ask me that question, a typical day, every day kind of varies a lot.
I love, I'm listening, and I'm really, it's wonderful to hear this. And, the fact that you've been there 13 years, this is one thing I can say. And, Genesis House has been fabulous. I guarantee you this is one of the first podcast of its kind, nationwide, I'm sure. Yeah. But, what I've found as somebody who's sent at least 12, maybe 15 clients to your facility, is there are long-term employees there. It's not too big where you get lost. Yep. The real intent is to help. When it was Tony and now it's Taylor, yourself, Ed, and everybody down there, it just seems to me, the conversations I've had or the communications I've had, whether it was an email, a text, a phone call, it's always been such a chock full of knowledge and chock full of advice and suggestions and updates. It feels like a family almost.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is. And you know what, Steve? You hit it right on the nail, Steve. Is the longevity of some of our therapists there? Right. I mean, in this field, I know I'm in touch with other treatment centers and other places and come across, and this one's running to that one's running to this one. For some reason, I always say that, we must have a really good place to work at. And our group of people that are there, your therapists, have been there for a pretty long time. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we have great staff cohesion. The group's great client cohesion, and one of the things, and I'm glad you brought up the founder, the owner. I just want to say that I'm here to honor and memorialize. I was given an opportunity and a chance to work here years ago, and it's meant so much to me. And now Taylor has taken over and really streamlined things. And I just want to shout out and honor and memorialize that. Moving forward, it's just been an honor over the years, and I really love my job. Now, obviously, like any human being, there's good days and there's bad days, but overall, coming to work, I really enjoy, working from what I kind of call, or what we call in social work, the generalist intervention model, from engagement to termination, meaning that I engage the client from the very beginning, of the guys in my group, and sometimes other clients that are assigned to different therapists, doing the biopsychosocial, doing the family contact, doing the case management, the treatment planning, the discharge planning. It cuts down on the fragmented care. Mm-hmm. So having smaller caseloads, that is just such a blessing.
Yep.
And I can't, I don't have a lot of comparison basis to what I would consider some of the bigger treatment centers, but the big box treatment centers. But, I hear that a lot of things fall through the cracks.
Certainly,
and there's a lot of things that go on here. And we try and treat everyone here, and I don't want to get into a whole thing about, insurance or anything, but we try and treat everyone at the residential level of care across the board, despite what the managed care companies are doing, because these families rely on us. They put faith into us as an organization to help their loved one after they went through a complete intervention. There's a breakdown in the family system. They come to our program. And, if managed care decides that they don't meet the clinical criteria or medical necessity for continued care after 3 days, a lot of the other programs out there, the bigger programs, they're discharging them.
Right.
Yep.
We simply don't do that. We honor our commitment to work with a client throughout the duration of our treatment plan and our commitment.
Boy,
there's variations of that, 100%.
And it's so true. I have sent people for 30 years to treatment, and I've dealt with many treatment facilities. And I'm thinking of one up here in Mass. I won't mention it, but it's a big place. And the letters of the begin with A, and they're in the front. Back in the day when we had yellow pages and everything, AAA or whatever, But the important thing is that is important, because after 3 days, I've had phone calls. He just got there. Well, his insurance isn't going to cover it. It's not going to. And I've also had phone calls from Genesis House where I knew the insurance ran out, and I don't hear from the client. One more thing I wanted to ask. You take when a client goes down, they usually go down. They think they're going to go play golf, or they're going to, maybe play a little tennis. They might bring a tennis racket. But everybody brings a phone, and I think it's so important that the phone is taken off them immediately. Do you get? I guess, and I'm not trying to be make this a funny situation, but you must really have to wrestle phones off people sometimes, right?
I'm sure,
because this is like a lifeline. Yeah,
Well, it is. There's a huge kind of detachment disorder that goes along with that.
Absolutely.
Well, that's their life. Like Mike said, it's their lifeline, and they definitely have a hard time giving it up, I'm sure. Yeah. But again, back to the staff, Steve. The longevity of I've even been there. I mean, almost 13 years. I think you and I just started almost at the same time, and it just speaks volumes to the program. And you're honoring Tony, and he was a great guy. He was very hands-on. Taylor followed that through. We had a girl on a couple weeks ago, Amanda. I think you remember Amanda Marino. Yeah, Amanda Marino. Alumni, yeah. So she had a story about Tony, and this is a company, because we're small. We're only 26 beds, where the owner does get involved. Taylor's involved. Everybody know. If you say, "Did you see Taylor?" And they know. Almost every client knows Taylor. Every client knew Tony. It's a really hands-on experience when you get down there, right from the owner all the way down to the techs, like you said. And I think that makes a good. A healthy kind of environment for the client to see that. You're not sitting around saying, "Oh, this place sucks," and I can't wait to get out of here, and I got 2 weeks left, and that just doesn't happen all the time, and then never down at Genesis House.
Well, I disagree with that a little bit, Ed. Now, that's in the nature of the addict.
That is the nature.
Yes.
Nature of the beast.
Fault finding,
Yep.
Trying to minimize, denial, get out of treatment. We all understand that. But no,
Yeah.
you're right. All jokes aside, you're absolutely correct. Everybody is involved and everybody has a role here. And I feel that is any good chemical dependency treatment team has a good, a rounded team.
Yep.
Let's say.
Yeah, absolutely. The one last thing I want you to clear all this up. We don't have an Olympic-sized swimming pool. We don't have a library. We don't have a gym.
No polo ponies?
No polo ponies. But we do have pet therapy. But a lot of people come in. We were just on our call this morning, and somebody was complaining about they want to leave because there wasn't a library or something. And
boy.
it's just so they have to deal with stuff like that too. So
Hey, Steve,
I saw a commercial the other day, and for a treatment center. So they offer boat therapy, serious, boat therapy, golf therapy, scuba therapy.
Sure.
Calling that therapy, I understand the importance of under our licensing, we have to offer recreational services, which I think is important for a holistic treatment plan. But instead of focusing on what we don't have, let's focus on what we do.
Yeah, that's been great. Yeah. Steve, this has been great. I'll tell you, it's been such a pleasure working with you. Even at a long distance, it's been great. And just to be able to talk to you for a half hour and see your face and put up with this guy. I know this must be different. You must like it when he's up here, right, Steve?
Absolutely.
And Steve, it's a pleasure for us to be co-workers for the last 13 plus years, and I hope that continues for the next 20, 50 years. And it's an honor. It's an honor to be working with you, Steve.
Hey, everybody, thank you very much for listening to Friends in Recovery podcast. Real quick, the number's been scrolling across the bottom of your screen. If you do want to get any more information, Friends in Recovery podcast or Genesis House.
Yep. Or right? You too.
Or you can call me at 978-459-4884. That's Mike Miles, Therapy Services, and I'll direct you in the right direction.
And also, don't forget to check out our new podcast on a different channel. It's called Friends in Recovery, Answering the Call. We have a couple shows under our belt already, and it's geared towards first responders.
First responders, police, fire, EMS.
Yep. So check that out too. Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
All right, Ed, we'll see you next week.
Yep. Stay sober, everybody.
Thanks, Steve.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.